This agricultural schedules began in 1840, but it was only a mark to say that they were in the agriculture business, did not give out any other information. So the National Archives gives you a brief description of what the agricultural schedules of 1850, 60, and 70, which were similar, with 2 pages of documentation that they gave out. They want to know if you were an owner or a manager. How much land did you improve and how many acres did you have not improved? The type of livestock you had. Also, the amount of agricultural goods that you had produced during the previous year. So like in 1850, it had been 1849. Some cash values regarding those. And then in 1880 schedules, they added several more different types of details and information. So we're going to see all those differences as we go along. And then the website, the National Archives for the census of regarding non-population, because they also have the blank schedules. So you can, if you wanted to, you could mark down the information besides taking a copy of the actual image. But not every farm was included in these schedules. In 1850 through 1860, if your farms did not sell more than $100, you were not included. By the 1870, it was if you were less than 3 acres or you produced less than $500 worth of products, you were not in the schedules. Okay, to get to these schedules, the non-population schedules, and then on to the agricultural, from Ancestry in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see a square box that says U.S. Census Records. You will click on all. For your Ancestry.com account, you will see My Quick Links, which is towards the middle of the right side of your screen, and you will click on U.S. Census Records. When you get to that page, you will scroll down until you see U.S. selected Federal Census non-population schedules. Click there, and this screen will come up. You have 2 choices. You can search or you can browse. Right now, we're going to show you how you can search. You can type in the name of the individual you're looking for. You can put in the township, county, and state, but I'm putting in just the county and the state. And so, but then if you want to, you can also select the year. So if you want to just focus on 1 year at a time, because a lot of times when we do a general search, we may not see all these schedules because of some issues or some errors in indexing or other problems. So here with the browse, you can select the state, the type of schedule, your year, your county, and then local areas will show up. So when you browse, you're going to go by just the local and not search the whole area. And then at the Genealogy Center, we have several of these on microfilm. And to find them in our microfilm catalog, which is underneath our resources free databases, you will find the microfilm catalog. From there, you're going to click on Census Records. Then you're going to scroll down and click on Select Census Type. And at that point, you're going to see that you can choose the agricultural schedule. And then this is the results. And then Indiana's is not in Ancestry's account. So the Indiana schedules are all out here on microfilm from 1850 to 1880. So then you can just click a link, and then it will come up with the roll numbers and give you the alphabetical listing of the counties. So like DeKalb County is in roll number 3. I might want to use Noble County, that's in roll 8. And another one is Research Wiki on Family Search. It will give you a brief description about the non-population schedules. You can click on any of the states they have there, and they're going to tell you what schedules out of the 4 non-population schedules there are, what they have available. So in here, when I clicked on, I believe it's Mississippi, it shows you the various agricultural schedules. And it's, oh, Georgia, I clicked on Georgia. I'm sorry about that. So basically, it's showing you what years there are available, what microfilm number you will find it on, and then you can actually do your browsing on Family Search. And basically, you're going to see this screen with the double pages. The one on the left is page 2 of the previous list of farmers. The right one is the farmer listing that I want to look at. And then when I'm done finding him on this page, I'll see which line number he's on. And then I'll get to the next one. In 1880, you get 10 people to a page, and it's only one page for the census, and it has 4 sections on that one page. But if you're unable to locate your ancestors, they could have spelled the name wrong when the person told them. They could have totally misspelled it by making a T, an F, or they could make a M into like an N or another way, depending on how they thought the person had written when they were transcribing and indexing these. So then you might want to like browse for the item or search the neighbors nearby based on what you've seen in the population. Because in the population schedule, they're going to tell you he was a farmer, and if it shows real estate value, that's going to help you know that he may be on the schedule. So I'm going to work with Wyoming County, New York. This is one of my husband's step relatives who married his 3rd great grandmother. And he was in the area between 1847 to like 1901. So, and basically based on the population schedule, you will see how they spelled his name in the schedule, how much his real estate value is, and how the agricultural spelling came when I was searching for it or browsing for it. And as you see, the only correct one is in 1870. And this is the Americanized version of Bervian, which is Berwian. So they just changed 2 letters in his name when he came after he had settled in New York. And so when I did a general search on his name, I only came up with 2 variations of his name. 2 years are missing. So I was able to look at those 2 first, and then I went looking for the others. And so, you know, he wasn't listed for 1850 or 1870, which means now I know how to browse it or do a search with it. And so here in 1850 are the 2 pages for Jacob. And I did recognize some of the neighbors. This family, I mean, I see my husband's 3rd and 4th great grandparents in there. So that kind of helped. But here Jacob has 50 acres of land worth. And so, and then it tells you how he had no horses. He has milk cows, working oxen, some other cattle, 1 sheep, 7 swine. And then it goes into what he grew. And then here is the rest of the grain information, plus maple sugar and other issues. And this also includes information regarding the southern plantations, because it has things about tobacco and rice and stuff in here. So this was the basic sheet for anywhere in the US. So you have to know whether or not they grew cotton, raised, planted tobacco, did rice. But for the regular farmers, like in the north area, you know that you got to double check all of what they were doing, because you have no idea what they had on their land. And it's be pretty interesting, because you know most of them are going to grow hay to feed their animals, and oats for horses and things. So you need to know what else did they have, it's kind of curious to see how well they grew too as you go along. So here he is in 1860. He went from 50 acres to 100. So you kind of wonder, when did he purchase more? And his value now is $1,500. And then this is the second half of what he grew. I could see when he had changed a little bit from his 1850 products and the type of livestock he may have. And then here in 1870, he now has 97. So what happened to some of the land, we don't know yet, but that'd be speculation when you get ready to really take a look and dive into when did he purchase, when did he sell, or anything else that he might have done with his property. And here is some more information of what he had done. I mean, I can see on number 26 is 51 pounds of, can't quite, I think it's wool or something, I'm not sure. I think it might have been shearing sheep or whatever. Or if not, it's pounds of wheat. Line 5 in 1880. And then the next 3 pages of this slideshow is going to show you the rest of the 1880 areas of the census. So in here he has 60 acres of land usage. He has permanent meadows and orchards totaling up to 40, I think 45. And he has 40 acres of woodland. Total value of his property, $2,800. So he went from like 150 to 150 or something like that up to 2,800 in his property. So he's really grown a lot, and you'll be interested in what happened to this property because it does state he's an owner. He was an owner in 1879. That same year, he sold the property to his son. So you wonder if he was really still the owner. So this gives you more information about the cereal grains, fiber, any sugar, butter, whether or not he had any orchard products he was selling, and if he did any eggs marketing. So what do I do once I get this information? How do you want to add it to make your ancestors' life come alive? Well, one thing, I did a comparison chart. This was done on Excel spreadsheet, but you can put it in a Word document table or on PowerPoint. I'll show you another one where I did them by just select groups that I did a comparison of my other example. So in here, it's telling you that he had 52 acres of improved land in 1870. And then he had a total of 60. So part of his land, you know, he switched to, had woodland and stuff. So he kind of moved back and forth on some of it. And it gave you his cash value, 50 to 15. Then it says 2,900 and then 2,800. So you kind of wonder what might have happened, and you might have lots of questions of what was going on at this time frame. And then the lease, the acres. He was missing 3 acres of land when I looked at the totals from 1860 and what he had now at 97 acres. Was that 3 acres part of the orchard? Don't know, because maybe he didn't count the orchard as part of his improved land. One great document to help you a little bit with is what they dealt with and stuff is the Farmer's Almanac. This one is the 1850 from Philadelphia area. It's talking about the sheep in various forms, giving them descriptions of what to look for and whatever, and rules in raising your poultry. And also in almanacs, we know they talk about the weather and other issues also. So in this one, it shows the moon phases. It gives you a conjunction of the weather for that whole month. And again, you see the rules in raising for poultry. And so here it is, like this is talking about all young chicks, ducks, and turkeys should be kept under cover during a rainy day, 2 or 3 times a week, what should be mixed up in their food. And it keeps going with the different types of stuff. So you mean, I didn't realize there was a lot of things and knowledge that you needed to know about raising some of your poultry or other types of livestock. I knew you learned with it, but I didn't know that they had actual procedures. So some of the questions about locating the records and other images of the property is, when did he purchase? Grantee indexes you'll look at. Number of acreage out of that, you'll find out in the deeds and contract books. Location, it's in the deeds and the tracts and the plat maps is where you can find out where it's located. When did he sell his property? He became a grantor at that point. How many acres did he sell? Who did he sell it to? And that you have to go to the tract books again. But like when he was a grantee, you'll find out who he bought it from. It may be family member, it may not be. We don't know. It could be a neighbor from the area when he was living overseas, and they invited him to come in and join the community. Other records are land survey. Get a description of what the land was originally. It could be when they first did a survey on it. Taxes, how much was he paying on taxes based on the improved land, unimproved land, and the type of livestock and other items that he had on the farm. Newspapers is another way of finding out some of the information on land properties. So here is an 1866 plat map. J. Barbian, circled in red, is in the area near Bennington Corners. Bennington was a township, but in New York, they call all townships town, which causes some confusion to us who are used to towns, cities, townships. So you got to remember in New York, they do anything different, a lot of things. He's just north of the Sheldon area where his family went to church. I know that because I found records, so that kind of helped to give me an idea of, he had to travel a little bit to get to church on Sundays. And L. Lynn to the left and a little bit lower was a relative through his stepson, because his stepson married the daughter of Lorenzo Lynn. So that kind of helps give you an idea is that how people lived together, and most of them married each other in this area too. So that gives you a little bit of story. Maybe he sold some of the land to keep his family nearby. We don't know. So here is another part of the spreadsheet. This is based on the livestock and the value. He had more value on his livestock in 1870 than he did the rest of the years. You can also find information on the business section regarding the sales of livestock, sale of eggs and poultry. You can also find whether or not they had special events for the farming community, whether or not there was auctions, whether or not they were listed in the gossips. Did they go visit somebody? Did something happen on the farm? You know, various accidents. So this is a great way. Plus, again, taxes on the various types of products and livestock. Produce. There are more information. There's newspapers about the cost of seed, cost of harvest, other information, possibly telling you, warning you about weather coming through. Again, the Farmer's Almanac predicts weather, gives you crop information. You can also find information in a history of the county and also the history in the township section. So on this part, there's also the orchard and stuff. You can find out what the products, farm products were pricing, advertisements for selling it and gathering it, or maybe other sources we don't know. There could be journals, there could be diaries, there could be all kinds of notes somewhere, maybe even an account ledger stating his tracking of what he purchased, what he sold, what he grew. We don't know what's out there, and we might get lucky and run across it, or it may have gotten somehow into a historical society. We don't know what was left behind when our ancestors had passed away. Okay, other individuals, like I said earlier, the plat maps, it locates your farms. It shows you where the roads are and the railroad tracks. It also gives you neighbors. The land description, was it hilly? Did it have valleys? Were there rivers, creeks, lakes, and ponds? Was it very wooded, or was it just all flat and no trees? A topographical map will help you also to picture it. Newspapers can do help wanted for hand laborers or day laborers. They can tell you when a farm is for sale. If there's auctions, estate sales, whether or not the market values are for the produce and the meats. So here is a newspaper from Batavia, Genesee, New York. It talks about a farm and pavilion for sale cheap. It has 130 acres, and it gives you the description of the land. It has about 30 acres of heavy timber, 10 acres of wheat, 12 plowed and ready for a spring crop. It's well fenced, watered by 3 springs, and a never failing brook. So it gives you a description of that property. Should your ancestor have purchased that from Thomas Lord, it would be a nice way if you found an article in a newspaper describing the property that was purchased. Another one, farms for sale, 95 acres, 100 acres. Another one, 202 acres. Some of these don't give you much information except for the location. But I do like the one from Pavilion where it gave you a nice description of what the land was like to give them a better idea of whether or not they wanted it. Because they were also they were on the stage road. So quite access. And you can also find market values, like the one that talks about the cost of wheat, white wheat, 150, wool, 60 cents, oats, 70 cents. It doesn't tell you what the amount is, but basically the farmers would have known. Corn that was shelled, beans and whatever. Then on another Friday morning in September, so one was in March, letting you know what spring crops you might want to put in based on what the prices are. And then again in September, when you are harvesting, it will give you an idea whether or not there was an increase in productivity area so that you can get a better value on what you were selling. So this came from the history book of Wyoming County, New York. The town of Bennington, it gives you a description of where it was located. Bennington was in the northeast corner of the county. And it gives you a description of some property and information here, which I'll give you a nicer look of it on the next page. So here it is where Bennington County had 33,900 acres. The area of improved land was greater than in any other town in the county, it being 26,149 acres. Cash value in 1875, the cash value of the property of all these acres, $1,322,081. And so I typed what was in the paragraph over here on the side so you could see the pasture acres, the meadow acres, the number of cows, the pounds of butter, pounds of cheese, gallons of milk, the tons and bushels of the various grain, and then like pounds of maple sugar. They produced 31,460 pounds of maple sugar in 1875. Poultry, a number of poultry sold was $2,350 worth, and the eggs were $3,290 value that was sold. So it gives you an idea of how many sheep they kept. 1,576 sheep were still kept at the farms, and out of those sheep, 7,786 pounds of wool. So it gives you an idea when you kind of want to do a percentage of a family farm based on the number of sheep they might own, how much wool they donated, sold. And it would be kind of interesting to see how big or a percentage of your ancestor's farm was, because you can put that in the story. Was he a rich farmer, or was he a farmer who just lived enough to get by? we don't know until we really look at some of these items. I am amazed with the very, very information that New York historians have put in to the history about the farms and other areas of like social statistics. They give you some wonderful details. I wish other counties could have done the same thing. But I mean, they may have in a different part, maybe in a newspaper or something. We don't know until we look. Okay, additional information to locate would be the sale of the products. Was there any grain elevators nearby? Did they take it to the grain elevator, sold it there? Did they join a farmers association of some sort where they had meetings? How often did they meet? Where did they meet? Did they combine their produce to sell so it would take less cost of transportation? And so it'd be interesting to locate some of this information regarding it. And so this one is part of my story I'm adding to Jacob Irvin and stuff. So the top part is information I gathered from St. Cecilia's Church family census done sometime between 1850 and 1855. It stated he married Catherine Wilmoth Zimmer in 1840. And then just below his information, listing his parents and a sister that was there at the church. It also listed his children he had with Catherine. And then Catherine had information listing her first husband, when and where he died, and then her two children, her mother and her father, and a sister or two that she had. So that was wonderful information to add into my story. But then based on his agricultural stuff, I could give this information. And then I did footnotes saying how I found him, what kind of information there was so that they could, someone who reads my story about this ancestor will know that I had actually used documentation and databases for my source. Okay, now we're going to do an Indiana agricultural schedule involving two counties because one ancestor was in one county and then moved after his wife died to another county. So in this one, when I did a search on him, in 1850, his real estate value was $1,000. In 1860, I had a hard time finding him. He was listed as David, not Daniel. And then 1870, 6,000. 1880, no value, but he was listed as a farmer. So I kind of wondered, was he in the census or not? So I had to check by browsing. So with Daniel Showers in 1850, he's in Union Township. I was always told that he lived in Richland because it kind of surprised me. So I found him and he had 120 acres worth $1,000. And it looks like he just began to farm. And I will tell a story about that a little bit. And there's more crops. And this farmland he sold in 1848 to his father-in-law. His father-in-law died in 1849. Did he get the property back through probate? I don't know yet. And then started to farm again in 1849. It is hard to say. Or did he take over his father-in-law's farm and all the information was put under his name because he was now the owner? Don't know yet. So, but it's an idea, you know, because I knew he sold it, but yet I found him in an 1850 agricultural census. So it kind of threw me. And then 1860, he's here with 160 acres with some good value on it. Living in Allen Township, Noble County, near Kendallville. And it tells me there's some other information. I'm not sure what it all says there. And then gives me what he grew. And then in 1870, it gives me some property account there too. I would have to add it and find out how much it is. Property's worth $6,000. still the same area, so he didn't move from this place. And then some more what he grew. There's not much numbers there, so it's almost like because of his age. He was born in 1804, so he was in his 60s, so he might not have done a whole lot. Here he is in 1880, same county area and stuff. So that gives me a little bit more information. 5,000 property value, so it's like, okay, he's doing well. And then about the various products and stuff he had going. So to enrich your family history, there's a lot more other information you might want to find regarding it because of what he did, where he was. And again, like the previous example, where did he sell it? Did he go to a market or whatever? And so basically here I'm doing about the land bit. He had 120 in 1850. And then he had 160 in Noble. Up 1870, he lost 6 acres. Did he give them to one of his children? Did his daughter get married, and did he give her as a wedding present 6 acres on his property, or did he give it to a son? We don't know. And then in 1880, he lost more acreage, another 49 acres. Again, did he sell it to family members, neighbors, children? Have no idea. I need to start looking for the land records for Noble County and in the deed books to see what was going on during those time frames. And so his livestock, here it is from the different areas. You can see there was some where he didn't have any horses, and all of a sudden he ends up with 5. It gives you an idea of what he had. And you notice in 1860, 1870, he sold some oxen. And so as you look at this, you're going to might question things and see what's going on. And so agricultural highlights for the different years. He didn't do any wheat the first year. It might have been too late when he was told he was going to farm the land or anything. But then you can see some really high increases towards the end of his life, more than at the beginning. But it gives you an idea of what he decided to stay in when he was doing his farming and what he gave up for a couple of times, maybe because the weather was bad, so he lost some property, he lost some grainage, or he might have, the land could have been too wet for that stuff. We don't know what the weather was like back then. Well, I don't know which newspapers to look for at this point in time, but that is stuff I will need to look to see if there was weather reports, like during the winter, during the spring, during the summer, during the fall. Were there any prairie fires? Were there any forest fires? Were there any kind of damage done? Were there tornadoes? Were there floods? We have no idea what they went through, but we have seen a lot of that now in our own areas that we've been through and stuff. But it was like he went into maple sugar, and all of a sudden in 1880, he didn't do any of it. Maybe it was too hard of a work for him. Maybe he was fragile enough where he couldn't do a lot of certain items and stuff. There's a lot of questions you need to look at. Was he healthier towards the end? Did he have issues between the different census years? We don't know. So another information again is plat maps. Locate the farms. Where are the roads? Where are the railroads? Where was his neighbors? Again, the description of the land surveys. Newspapers. Help wanted. Farm for sale, auctions, estate sales. Don't forget the society section where they had gossip, people saying so-and-so went to visit so-and-so, or their daughters and sons came home, things like this. So it gives you an idea of how your family was really into the community and things. Plus market values again. Where would he have went? Where would he have contacted to send his meat or send his produce based on the values? Was it worth him to travel far enough to take it to a depot area to send it up to the market? Was there an agent in the area for those markets that might have talked to them to sell or collect produce to send to the different markets? So here in Fort Wayne's newspapers are the different years. So you could browse through the various years. Might be the year he got his land, or maybe just before, the year before, to see if he purchased it. Was it in the advertisement of the newspaper? But, you know, just pick an area of where they're from and see if there's newspapers going on. So here in Steuben County, they had markets. They had various markets, and I did a quarterly from February, August, and December of some of the stuff that our ancestors may have been looking at, making decisions of whether or not they want to raise the livestock or sell the livestock based on pricing. Plus, what kind of grainage do you want to plant based on what was the market value at the time. There's a surveyor's notice, 2 of them there. So they were doing some land descriptions and things around. And so here's another Angola, different newspaper, but these are the markets. Angola's newspaper listed 4 markets: the Chicago market, the New York market, Cincinnati, and Toledo. So it's like, okay, you would really have to play a numbers game with spreadsheets and stuff to see where would, if I was a farmer, where would I have sold my produce to, or did I just keep it in the local area? And so here's another one with market prices regarding dry goods and other areas. They even have a Detroit market, Cleveland market now in here, as well as Philadelphia market in the paper in 1880. Fort Wayne Gazettes to the owners of horses, explain thousands die yearly, and it's based on what kind of problems may cause that. So they will have to take a look at what they were trying to purchase or sell or even handle if there was horses that were ill. And again, some more things about some equipment, Mower and Reapers, another farm market there in Fort Wayne, the richest farming lands that were in Kansas. So like some places out west were trying to get people come out to them and live there in Kansas and things. And you get some other ideas of what they might be leaning towards, or if your ancestors did leave an area and went out west, were they enticed by some of these notices they were getting? Garrett News talked about the New York, Chicago, St. Louis, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Toledo, and East Liberty markets. And they gave you some ideas and some prices and things. And then again, Fort Wayne with some markets. Besides theirs, they had New York and Toledo. And then family histories, when you want to do things, is what did they experience? Write about some successes they might have had, maybe some problems they had, issues they had, what was going on between the 1850 and 1880, their struggles. And again, diaries, journals, family stories. Somebody might have told you that your ancestor, what they did and stuff. I was told by a person I used to work with about my grandfather. I did not know that he was well liked and did so well just toting livestock from Michigan, in the middle of Michigan, to Chicago. And on the day he was buried, they did a moment of silence for him at all stockyards that he had ever stopped at between the Alma area and Chicago. I was kind of quite shocked about that. I did know that he did pick up some stock from neighbors and stuff and toted them to another stockyard, but I didn't know he traveled more than 4 hours away to deliver some of this stock, which gives me a more of an in-look about my grandfather, who I don't remember. So those kind of stories, you need to jot down and remember things about, or find things out, or learn things from neighbors and stuff. One of them was a neighbor of my grandfather who told me this story, and I talked to my dad, and he goes, oh yeah, because I didn't know anything about the story. More information, sales of products, how many sons were living at home or nearby to assist him with the planting and the cutting, storing of crops. During the 4 different census year, he only had 2 sons, one from his first wife, who went and served in the Civil War, came back, and a son from his second wife. Both those sons ended up in Gratiot County, Michigan, before the 1890s. And so, you know, I do know that George was living with his father by at least still by 1870, 1880, he was a neighbor. So he might have helped his father, or he might have gotten some of that property of his father's to live on. Okay, note of interest. In 1919, Bureau of Census transferred custody of the existing 1850-1880 agricultural and other non-population schedules to state repositories. There were cases where some state officials declined the schedules. They may have been sent to a county office or to the university or college's archival area. They have no record of where those items went. So you may find some records at your state library or archives, but you would have to really not insist that they're there, because nobody knows where each set of the schedules went to. There's no listing of where they went. But I had noticed this on the Bureau of Census website when I was checking some other things. Now here comes a question. Were there any agricultural schedules after 1880? Yes, various years, sometimes between the population schedules. And there is a article out there about the different years out on the Bureau of Census, plus that article from Kimberly Power that I put into your handout also mentions the various years they went to after 1950. So between 1890, 1900, 1910, 1920, 30, 40, and 50, the schedules were in those years. And so, and the other ones were based on this, based on whether or not it was territorial and other things. And then again, Hawaii had them in 1930. So 1890 was destroyed by a fire. 1900 and 1910, after they had gathered all the information out of it and put it into a special summary report, Congress decided they weren't necessary to keep, and they were ordered to be destroyed. Nothing had been microfilmed. So here's a little bit thing. Okay, 1920 appeared to be on the list for scheduled for destruction, but they don't know if they actually were destroyed or what happened to them. There was no information given about 1930, 1940, and 1950. So basically, between 1920 to 1950 would have been a nice one to learn more about my grandpa, or even my great-grandfather, from 1900 up to 1950. It's like, wow, look how much I've missed, you know, that I have. But I can still look at the newspapers and stuff to see what kind of stuff could have been. Plus, I can find out when he purchased land and when he sold land. But how much he grew and what he grew, I wouldn't know. So here is the Census of Agricultural Historical Archive site. And they tell you the various years, starting with 2002, what years they have done reports from. But the statistical reports are based on the full United States, by states, and by counties. It does not include townships nor individuals. So you can't even get down to the townships, but you can get down to the county. What did the county do and how much of it? And you can wonder, was that my grandfather's? Was that my great-grandfather's? We don't know, but it gives us an idea of what could have been grown in that area. And so basically here, I'm showing you the 1925 census publications for the agricultural schedules. And it shows you the number of farms operated, who were owners, full owners, part owners, managers, tenants, cash, other. So it gives you an idea of what they were looking at during those years. And it also helps you to get an idea that your ancestor is in that report, but you can't get down to them. And here is the division of those reports. They have the New England, Mid-Atlantic, South Atlantic, North Central, East and West, South Central, East and West, Mountain and Pacific divisions. Okay, any questions?